Hello, good evening. Monday, the 28th of September. It is just after 8 p.m. in the United Kingdom. And we are joined just after midday at Los Angeles time by our beautiful friend Peter Falt. My name is Thea Van Dort. I'm the executive producer of Time of the Sixth Sun. In the window to the left of me is Nikki Luna Williams, and she's the writer, director, producer of this amazing movie, an 8-part documentary series, Time of the Sixth Sun. And our guest tonight is Peter Falt, who is joining us from LA. Peter, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Real pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Or for you this afternoon. So let us know where you are. Lyra's already said I'm here from London. Kim says I'm here from Canada. Claudia is saying hello. I don't know where you're from, Claudia. You're watching, all three of you are watching on YouTube. So we're going live, Pete, across YouTube, across our Facebook group and our Facebook channel, our page as well. Eileen says hello. So while all you guys are saying hello, I want to say Peter Falt is a design philanthropist, and he focuses on using design and creative problem solving to generate new opportunities that challenge the status quo. And he pushes us collectively into the future that we wish to create. And you're doing an amazing job, Pete. And every time we speak to you, it's just like, wow, it's lovely, lovely. And Pete and I were saying, actually, it's been 3 years since we met in person. Because when Luna and I went to Australia to film the last scenes of the Rainbow Gathering, then we came back from Australia and Peter was there with us. And then when we came back to Los Angeles on the way home, we went to Peter's house and met his family. And this guy's the most amazing dad because he's built his children this slide in the garden. And I was like, I want to have a go on your slide, Pete. And he was like, you go for it, man. I said, I'm in my 40s. He said, just have a good go. Anyway, it's fun. So Pete's kids and me were going down this slide. It was just such a lovely afternoon. His beautiful wife. So it's great to have you with us. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
And oh my God, we've got so many people coming in. Here we go. So let's just rattle through these names. We've got Patricia from Emsworth. We've got Rhea from the Netherlands. We've got CEO Jimmy Lee from Bogota in Colombia, Boston. We've got London. We've got Ilse from Holland. We've got Maddie's there. Anne is from West Virginia. Suzanne from Shasta Lake, California. We've got Eileen from Arkansas. Lisbeth from the Netherlands. Claudia from Netherlands. Colombia is in South America. Yeah, I know that, Jimmy. What did I say? Maybe I got it wrong. Veneshi from Mauritius. Now, bless Veneshi. We sent Veneshi a physical package. And because of COVID, I posted it in May and she got it last week to Mauritius. And she never once rung to complain, say, where's my package? She just trusted it would turn up and it did. But that's the longest a package has ever taken to go around the world. So thank you for your patience, Veneshi. We got Jenny. We got Lorraine from Yucatan. Gail from we got Miller from Italy. We're going to keep going. Young from Holland. I can't keep up. Anne from Holland. We've got MJ from Ireland. Annalise from Denmark, and Bernard, who says hello, and Penny from Switzerland. Right, that's it. And Danielle from Holland, who's been with us from the beginning. So Peter, you now can see we have a global audience that are here to hear what we have to chat about this evening. So over to you, Nikki Luna, you lovely lady.
Hey. So, yeah, 3 years. Wow. That was a while ago. So how are you guys coping over there, Pete, with not only COVID mania, and it is mania, but also ferocious California wildfires and also upcoming elections? So energies must be running pretty high out there with you guys.
It seems like it, but you know, if you turn the news off, it's a beautiful day. I think certainly what we're presented with in the media, as we know, doesn't match reality. But we certainly have the same challenges with the coronavirus and just the course that is taking there, and seeing how a lot of different people are handling it. And then, of course, the fires are just sad, not just because of the ecological destruction, but a lot of the labor, the people that are struggling to get that done, and of course people displaced. So that's almost constant. I don't know if there's a fire season anymore.
Yeah.
But like I said, I mean, if you really kind of stop and can somehow divorce ourselves from the energy of whether it be political concerns or the environmental destruction or this whole quote pandemic, boy, this breath and having this breath still does deliver every one. So yeah, feeling really fortunate all the way around.
And I guess with the fires, they're also regenerative in a way.
Yeah, I mean,
the soils, and
like many things, we have screwed it up. So the little fires took care of the big fires, and when we stopped that, now we're dealing with the big fires, and lots of acreage are burning, of course, because the fires are so hot. But most of what's reported on is the economic disaster. How many houses are left, how much money it's costing to pay the firefighters, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the quote disaster is economic.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily, I mean, again, I think, how do we support those people in reality? And it's out of mind, or out of sight, and so therefore becomes out of mind, I think, to most of us. But it is going on. I mean, down in Australia last year, they had one of the biggest ones ever, and all those headlines are gone now. And how much support are they actually still getting? So the disaster continues. It's just the attention, our attention is so fleeting. And,
yeah. And our attention is what the media focuses on.
Yes, the newest. Let's focus on the newest drama.
Yeah. What can we spread fear with next? We run out of fear on that. Let's do something else. Yeah.
Yeah. No shortage of that.
You've got 3 kids, Pete, and they're what, 8, 11, and 12?
Yep. Still quite young. Mm-hmm.
And how are the kids affected? Like their generation, you seeing how conscious they are about doing the right thing for the planet in everything we do?
Yep.
Or they are?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest change, of course, is school. Here, at least in California, it's all gone to online. It was supposed to be kind of a hybrid where they do a half day with half the class, and everybody wears masks and distances, and then the rest of it is online. Now it's all online. So they certainly miss the social part of the school. Recess, of course, one of the best subjects. But I think at least our kids are coping fairly well. They have plenty of homework to do, and when it's interesting because school is going to be one of the things that changes because of this. When you actually look at the amount of work that they have to do, it's pretty small. I think a lot of homeschoolers have known that for a while. It's going to change. It changes their behavior, and it puts a lot of it onto the household. And certainly, my wife tries to make sure that all that time is managed and done right, and then we need to fill it with other positive activities that they can do. And because a lot of those are outside of the curriculum, as they always have, but even more so now. But it's interesting, the eco part, they are extremely emphatic about, and being that young to have such strong positions is actually quite encouraging. One of my responses to them is that I'm so happy that you're so passionate about it, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take your generation to clean up a lot of the mess, and you are unfortunately going to be having to make a lot of the decisions that may not be easy decisions. So it's encouraging to me to see that they're coming from that place.
Yeah. So the title.
Luna, you got to move in because you're too far from the mic. Lovely. Yeah.
Okay. So Pete, you work as a design consultant for a pretty huge organization in the US. But you've had a foot in both worlds for many years, both the indigenous world and the world of high tech, I guess you can call it. So do they each bring merits and understanding to the other? Is there a symbiotic relationship between the two?
I mean, I think you can draw any kind of association to it. But I think because everyone's human in the end, so it's really just context, and that's kind of my unique journey and how I got to where I am. So my focus is and my life experiences have led me to those two, perhaps could be somehow different focuses, led me for them to be the same. So there's definitely a lot that can benefit, I would say, the indigenous people from disciplines and professional techniques that create, and we're seeing a lot of that, and I know we'll talk about more of that later.
Yeah.
But I think, at least it's been just kind of a personal conclusion from a personal journey that has put these two kind of a little bit disparate focuses together.
So tell us about how you first met Godfrey Chips. And maybe you can tell me who Godfrey was, because obviously now he has returned to the...
Yes. Yeah. Well, Godfrey was an incredible man. He was actually a UWIPI man, and by all regards could be claimed as one of the most powerful shamans that we had in North America. He was a long line of the Chips family, and it goes quite a ways back. I think he was actually the 7th generation, if I recall. So he comes from a long line of that UWIPI, and actually his I guess it was his great grandfather, essentially created the UWIPI ceremony. So it goes back that far, and a lot of history there on and why geographically up on the reservations there it was happening was because of what the government at that time was allowing for ceremonies to happen with this one particular gentleman. And it's because actually he proved that the powers were real, and he proved that as they were trying to shut down the ceremonies across the rest of the United States, that he, with those powers, was given the ability to practice up there in a small area. And so that's why a lot of the medicine men came to that location, was to actually do ceremony and learn from Woptica Chips at that point.
And Lakota.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so, that obviously there's a tremendous amount of history on the people, on their plight, on their struggle as a nation with what's happened historically. But the beauty of the people are still there. Certainly the descendants there are just wonderful people. Some of the, laughter is always a good telltale, even amidst a lot of hardship. And the hardship, of course, comes from just being subject to this world and where we are right now, and a lot of the Western influences that are upon them.
Yeah. So I wonder what that book is, Taya.
I don't know.
Is there some noise?
Yeah, but I've never heard it before.
It's me, and I'm sorry. I'm trying to get it to stop. I think it has stopped.
No, it's not. No, it's not noise on the outside. It's like a microphone speaker feedback issue. But
so I was going to say
now.
Yeah, it seems to have stopped. So Godfrey was Lakota Sioux, and his great grandfather was Horn Chips, who was the mentor to Crazy Horse. We have talked about him before when we interviewed Bill Lyon.
Yeah, very interesting relationship there, basically raised together. And I heard firsthand some of that story from essentially what is Godfrey's cousin, who's also a UWIPI man, still living today, and telling a lot of the history of the family. It's quite fascinating. So yeah, he was the one who gave Crazy Horse the protective medicine that everyone so famously knows him for.
Yeah. And so how did you come to meet Godfrey? You had you went to him originally for healing, is that correct?
Correct. Yes, I had a situation that Western medicine wasn't really helping me to a level of satisfaction. And had known one of your previous interviewees and Dr. Lyon, who introduced me to some local people who could perform some ceremony, and that was successful to a degree, but wasn't really long lasting or wasn't permanent. And so based on that, we went up to the reservation there to Godfrey, to where we met and to where he performed the healing ceremony for me, which really changed my life in many regards. And one of them, of course, being having this extreme gratitude for him, for his family, and really just to the Creator for even presenting that to me as an opportunity.
Yeah, and you had what, a lesion on the brain, or was it?
Yeah, in the end, they couldn't tie the lesion to whatever the conditions that I was having, but there wasn't really, the only solution, of course, at the end was drugs, according to the Western option, and that wasn't really preferable for me. So, yeah, the Whippy ceremony and the healing that he performed was, like I said, truly life-changing.
Absolutely.
The work that those guys did was just amazing. I'm just going to grab this book over here. It's disappearing, but I mean, I got a copy of Bill's book, Spirit Talkers.
Yes.
And just when you read about what those incredible people could do, I've just been, absolutely blown away by it. I only got introduced to Bill. I met Bill the first time when I was with you in 2017, and then obviously we did the talk with Bill, and when he told us some of those stories, but then when you go in his book and you go in depth into it, it's like, whoa. I mean, I can imagine how you probably just got absolutely taken away by everything that they can do, and that's why you ended up having that beautiful relationship with Godfrey, who I never got to meet. He was already in spirit by the time I met Luna.
Yeah, he was really fascinating, and I think perfectly kind of, at least to me, represented what a current shaman would really be like, which is basically a rebel, always cutting across the grain, and so it fit perfectly for my understanding, so yeah, he's certainly is missed, but we'll see where it goes. As far as on the up there on the reservation or off of it, but basically with the youth, because that was really the end, at least from what I can tell, of where it was connected to the cultural traditions and the traditions of the medicine there. Because, like I said, right now, I think most of the youth are interested in what everybody else is interested in of that age, from the social media to just media in general, television, gaming, anything that is, quote, enticing or a solution for young people today. So you see it get kind of further and further away from that last generation that actually had the connection.
Yeah. It's interesting, when we were chatting the other day, you were talking about the intentional demise of a great nation, and it was about the youth. It was when we were talking about the youth being maybe not interested in continuing the traditions of their forefathers. But you said, one generation removed, but 1,000 miles apart. That really struck home for me.
Yeah.
In one generation, it can be such a vast expanse between them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I said it's the kind of the end of a successful campaign. It's not a question that it was, and you don't even have to look at all the ugly underbelly of how that was done, but just the way to essentially make them dependent on the current system. And I think even the latest portrayal of them as just a race instead of a nation is indicative of that as well. So let's kind of try to smooth out all the last bit of controversy there by just calling them a race.
Yeah, really.
But clearly they're still a very proud people, I just think that they don't. Well, from again, my perspective is they don't have a lot of the traditional medicine or the sacred connection, the ones that you see them doing with the powwows and with the dancing, and that's all the kind of showing. That's a different kind of ceremonial attachment to their culture that is not through the medicine people who are able to bring down that quote knowledge, if you will.
Yeah. So you spoke of, I find it fascinating, it's not the first time I've heard this story. You spoke of that there's a treaty council, which is where the tribal chief sits, and then there's the tribal council, and that's who the government deal with usually when they want something. So it's the same story I've actually heard with the Hopi when they had this pristine, beautiful water table, and I can't remember exactly when it was, maybe in the 60s, that they approached the elders to use the water in order to run the slush down the mountainsides, the mining slush. And the elders didn't trust the representative who approached them, and they said no. So they went behind the elders' backs and approached the young'uns, if you like, and they did a deal with them. And now they have virtually no water table left. So, and there they also formed the Hopi Tribal Council. So it seems to be a bit of a pattern.
Yes. From my understanding, it was done so that the U.S. government would only have to deal with one entity, if you will. And so they set up that quote government, and by doing so, split it away from the Treaty Council. And the Treaty Council is where a lot of that tradition is. The tribal councils and the presidencies and the way that they've structured that a lot of times has to deal with the monetary side of it, of course. Whether it be the tax incentives or the bylaws and the casinos and a lot of that.
So really, the tribal council is the straw man here.
Yeah. It's the way to make it easy to interact with some of the policies and the funding that the U.S. government prefers to go.
So that's how they call the division, basically, within the tribe.
Yeah, and it may have changed in the last few years. I'm not sure, but I was invited to one of those treaty councils, and one of two actual Caucasian people in that up on the reservation, and it was fascinating. There's no lack of passion or emotion, I should say, about what people don't like, but a lot of it just felt like we've got to go back to the old ways, with the horses and the frontier, the population, and it's just never happening that way. Yeah. So it did seem like there was not this new how do we really figure out the way forward and keep our traditions, keep our connection to our culture, but deal with the reality of the world today. Mm-hmm. And the person at that time, Floyd Hand, who had stepped in just after the Chief Red Cloud had died, and trying to understand how that was passing, basically said that he's tired. And their generation is tired, and if the younger generation is not going to step up and really do the work of what's needed to done, then forget it. Because what they're doing now is for them. And so there was a lot of what I sensed as sadness or disappointment because that younger generation wasn't really stepping up. And that's not true unilaterally. Obviously, you see lots of individuals, which is what it comes down to, acting out of their own conscience and being aware of their culture and their history and doing some great stuff. But I think just in general, that was his sentiment of watching the liaise of the the malaise of the youth, and being really tired and wondering what he was doing.
And I guess you've seen both sides of it, Peter, because I guess you've seen the aspect of traditional shaman and medicine men, but you've also seen the bureaucratic side of that too. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I only got to the bureaucratic side, I would say, because I was up there on the reservation with a federal attorney who was a relation of mine that needed help. And so he went up to get that help. And in so doing, we were asked to go meet with someone. And it turned out to be Floyd Hand. And so that's where that came from. And because he was a federal attorney, and I remember almost immediately when we walked in, Floyd said, "We had been praying for a federal attorney, and here you did. You just walked right in the door." And so that was kind of a telltale, and lots of discourse had happened there. But then we were invited back to go to this actual meeting, and that was, of course, because they were at the time where they wanted to. Again, take back the land, basically get back to the treaties, the Fort Laramie Treaty, and felt that the law was the way to do it. Since then, I know that private entities have been able to go and to get things done a lot quicker and a lot more successfully than trying to get anything repatriated or changed from the law. It's more about raise the money and know what you want to do and use the vehicle of money to get that done, to acquire lands that are sacred that were once sold or taken and acquire them back that way.
Yeah, there's clearly a resurgence and a desire for indigenous wisdom, Pete. Our Western systems are failing, but the exchange now really needs to be different. And it's clear from government, like you just said, that they don't see the indigenous population as being part of the larger sovereign nation. They see them as just another race, certainly with the COVID thing, the way they've been marking them off. And it's truly shaming on the American government. I think that they're cherished.
Oh yeah, it hasn't concluded itself yet either by any standards. And I think it's really sad. I mean, we mentioned the beauty of the people there and the hearts and the laughter and the joy that they can find amidst all of that hardship, and it is real hardship. Yeah. They're just not. I mean, every month they get basically some stipend, so they get some cash. They get casino chips. And they get the food, the government issued food, and they get now the government issued pharmaceuticals. Basically, some kind of levelers. And so right away, it's they go to the casino and spend the cash and the chips, the casino chips, and then are left with the rest of the month with the government cheese and pharmaceuticals. So that doesn't sound like a great recipe for success and trying to get a leg up on anything. So like I said, all of the other initiatives have to be born from within them and have to be originated and executed and all that. And that's just not where they are, either energetically because they're over enticed by all the stuff that we mentioned, or they just frankly don't know how to do it and need the right help to do it.
You can send them prayers, huh? Yeah,
of course. Always in my prayers, I certainly remember them and pray for their health and happiness and whatnot. And we trying to do what we can. All of it does come down to funding, and in the end, there's will, and then there's the way. And the way typically is the funding that allows for that will to happen at least easily or in short order.
So, Peter, when we met, you told us that you were a Chanupa holder, so or a sacred pipe holder. Can you share with us the importance of that? And because in the movie, when we were in Australia, you hold the prayers, you filled the pipe, you passed it around in a circle. In fact, I might, for those of you that haven't seen the movie, I may have been able to pull this up. Let me, if I can pull this off, this is going to be a miracle because we haven't rehearsed this whatsoever. But let's try. Can you guys see the movie now?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Question is, can you hear it?
How can humanity create paradise on earth, heaven on earth? Well, we can begin with sovereignty for everyone. Everything and everyone is equal with each other within this earth.
We're all indigenous to this planet, no matter where we come from. We're multi-dimensional beings, spiritual beings, trying on clothing for a life, and that's this body. Because I'm eternal. I know that with my entire being.
As I run talking about dream time, I see new sovereign beings running. These are the sovereign beings of our next generations, our newborns. These new ancestors coming in, our newborns are our old coming back into the new again. Some would say reincarnated into new flesh garments, cosmic travelers coming back to finish their job. To be
we'll make him be quiet because he always talks too much, that one. But we saw there, it was only a fleeting moment of it, but you filling the Chanupa and the pipe, and it's a lovely story because we went there with this intention to do something, and then the universe worked completely against us, and we ended up creating that beautiful rainbow ceremony of which you were there, and it was just special. So, for example, would you use the Chanupa in ceremonies for your family's well-being or for abundance in your life, and what has this teaching taught you?
Well, I do, to answer your question, and I do it with great care and great reverence. And again, I think I just got lucky in a way of how this all happened. I was gifted the Chanupa from Godfrey actually after a few healing ceremonies that were done down in Lawrence there, again where Dr. Lyon had been living and where the lodges were set up, and Godfrey and Grandma and the kids had come to visit, and we had I brought some people that were needing help, and so that help occurred, and through that process, at the end of that process is when he gifted me the Chanupa, which was quite overwhelming in a way, completely unexpected, and didn't really know quite what to do with it. There weren't really a whole lot of instructions that came with it or anything, but was able to, of course, over the years, learn how that is. And there are certain ways that the pipe is filled, and traditionally with the directions and the pipe mixture and all of that I certainly do my very best to adhere to those traditions. And I know that lots of other people have new ways of doing it, and that it's seen as something different than at least traditionally the way it was presented to me. So that's the way it came. And
around it.
Say again.
A lot of protocol.
Yeah. I mean, it's so a lot of it is just, again, knowing what to do, like facing north, for example, and the directions and the animals and the powers that are in those directions, and those slightly vary depending on the tradition. As I said, this was Lakota that I was introduced to, so I've seen certainly variations on that. But caring for it is certainly something that is a priority, and it just requires a certain amount of attention and certainly that mindset to keep it there in that protective, honored, revered space. So where it is, how it's not put next to things that could be seen as polluting or whatnot, things like that. But to answer your question, yes, I do use it, and we do ceremony with my family. I've been doing that for a while. Initially, this was way before I had kids, and so it was, such an amazing way to pray, and also to pray with other people. And so I had seen that build over the years and decades. And so now to be able to do a ceremony with my family, with my young children, and to watch how they can hold that space and how they can actually do what it's intended to do, which is to, focus prayer and to focus prayer in such a manner that then through that sacred tradition that, it basically creates a walkie-talkie to the Creator, is the way that maybe a child could understand it. And so that's been really, really nice to see that reception, I guess, on their part, and that it's just not foreign. It's not a weird thing. There's a lot of traditions that go with it. Certainly the smudging, we all know about smudging and creating the clear space. So sometimes we'll just do that, and they totally understand that. The prayer ties, you're familiar with prayer ties perhaps, but the easiest way is to think about that as the rosary in the Christian faith. Grandma always said, it's just like the rosary, except that we make our rosary. So again, it's about focused intention in the prayers, and doing that in a manner that is conscious of doing that. And then doing them all in combination is certainly quite nice. So it's been.
Those that don't know, what are prayer ties?
So prayer ties are literally as simple as a string, a cotton string, with small pieces of fabric, and cotton again, because at least traditionally it was all natural.
3-inch by 3-inch squares, different colored squares, cotton square.
Yeah, there's different. Everybody kind of has their different sizes, but it's a square, and the point is that tobacco, being the most sacred to at least the Lakota, is you make the prayer with the tobacco, then you put that into the fabric. The fabric is closed and tied onto the string, and then you make your next one, and you make your next one, and you make your next one, and so the prayers are instilled in the tobacco. Tied on to the string, and how many tobacco ties are dependent on what the context of why they're being done. So for ceremony, for example, for the UWIPI ceremony, you have to do 405 prayer ties, and then I believe there's another 50 that were made for the altar. And that actually creates the border of the altar in the ceremony and whatnot. So they have so that when those spirits come in, those Tankashas come in, they just read all those prayers right away, and it's back to that kind of magic of how that happens in the spirit world. Or you can just make ties at any point. Or some people after a healing are given instructions. So you have to make 7 ties a day, for example, or something like that. So it could be part of a prescription that someone is given as well. But I found it to be just by itself a very just wonderful way to pray, and also for my kids. And I actually taught one of my daughter's Girl Scout groups. They asked for something, and so I brought in a little thing about actually women and Native American women and the importance that they played in history and to those people. And then we kind of concluded with how to make prayer ties, and we made prayer ties, and it was really sweet. That innocence in those prayers. And the Girl Scout leader at the end came up to me and said, I just want to tell you that this is the only time that these, however many girls, 20 girls have been silent for 20 minutes. So anyway, it was well received there. So it's not an age thing. It's not a cultural thing. It's a human thing.
And it's so lovely to sit around in a big circle, whether it's family or friends, to make them together, to pray together. It's such a beautiful thing, very potent.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of your design, Pete, some of your design work. I wanted to sort of compare these two worlds that you live in. So I want to say I love the title, which actually is where we got the name for the show tonight, that the title, what is it? Design unifies. I have to read this. Design unifies. It helps navigate some of today's biggest challenges and enables the creation of our world's most preferred future. Is that your quote? Yeah.
Which there's all variations of that. I think so in a way it's saying the same thing. Design is just a way to package all of the different pieces that are necessary, I think, to do that. Obviously, it comes down to, in the end, people, and that's why it's easy to say that empathy is one of the greatest strengths of design, and understanding the user requires empathy. We can look at it at an academic or at a mental level, and trying to get down to personas and trying to create segmentations for different markets and age demographics and all this type of academia around it, for sure, and it's real. But then you can also, by maybe using those techniques to learn, you can become empathetic, and you can start to really know the user and what they're doing. And if you look at the users as humans, we're all humans. We all have one home. It gets very easy to understand that lowest common denominator is what we're talking about here. And so design allows a way for those conversations to happen and for possibilities to be framed up and to be discussed, reviewed, evolved, etc. So it's just one way of putting an ability to have the right dialogue through the discipline of design.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Now that's worse when I get this. It's interesting because I've often heard corporations described as having the mentality of a psychopath, who are actually renowned for not having any empathy at all.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, this is, again, when you zoom out and understand design at its biggest opportunity, I think it's not just because it's maybe becoming popular again, but it's also out of the necessity that we have to develop things differently. Up till now, and even still now, basically the profit motive drives everything. Every solution is gauged primarily on the profit and loss of that opportunity. And the triple bottom line, which is not just the profit, but the people and the planet, have to be equal stakeholders in that and those decisions. And once you do that, once you create that balance of how everyone wins, the main stakeholders, that's how you get to these new solutions that are going to be so beneficial to all of us, including Mother Nature.
So let me just do the triple bottom line.
You've got to come closer, Luna. We can't hear you.
The triple bottom line is social, environmental, and then profit. But it can't be profit at all cost.
That's right. Yeah, it's the economic reality that drives a lot of the world and activity. It's the environmental necessity these days, but also care or concern or valuation of the nature.
Yeah.
And then it's social. It's we as the inhabitants. So the social can even include animals, of course. It's not just humans, but most of the time when we think about it, it is socially what the impact is going to be, or Is there a health concern on a human? So things like that. But you can see how, of course, it translates to all living creature and also, any plants and et cetera. The whole biosphere is really the stakeholder that we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not new. That's what's so crazy.
No, I was going to say, we talked about this a decade ago when I interviewed you. So I was wondering what's changed in that arena in 10 years.
That is really the great question. And once the film came out and certainly was brought back like a time machine to that moment, I asked the same question. And I think that there's more people understanding the necessity. And I think there is, certainly as young talent comes up, they are almost thinking like that by default. But it's still not rewarded to the point where you don't have to be primarily speaking to the prophet.
Yeah.
And I just think what's happening, and maybe it's because also in certain economic crises, money becomes more important, and I think that's the risk that you start to backslide and be like, yeah, okay, well, those other things are all right, because if we don't have the profit, we won't be here at all. Again, that's kind of a false perception. It's a corporate view. And as you see the companies who start to relax a little bit of the profit in exchange for having the returns from an environmental or a social aspect, it is happening. It's just not happening as prevalent as I would like to see it. I think it is happening much more on the startup scene. And when you look at some of these crowdsourcing sites and the products that are being offered there and being funded there, it's exquisite, and a lot of them are. And so of that balance, I'm working on one right now that's going to launch in a few weeks that is all about clean energy and is all about the future and how it can be done. And luckily, this is a company that's already doing it now. They're going to their next stage, so they're getting reinforcement that what they're doing is working, and they've been able to make a model, an economic model that actually works. And the point is to scale and to replace some of the things that are more caustic and harmful to us. That's a hard fight, just to stop that. The interests that are established are not going away. On the contrary, they're almost fighting for survival, which makes the struggle even more harder. It's not like they're acquiescing, being, okay, yeah, we got to let the new stuff that's better come in. It's like, no, this is their last stand, it feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was you've worked for a lot of big companies. You work for a lot of big companies. So I was thrilled to see the air taxi, the hydrogen fueled air taxis. You had a part in. Played a part in their creation. When might we see something like that? It's literally minimizes the destruction, the impact on our planet, for sure.
That's been one of the fun projects of late to lead, and they met a lot of wonderful people along the way, including the investors behind it, the investor behind it, because you see kind of the altruistic nature there as well. So it does, again, the money is money. Money's the energy. The person that is, or the entities that bring the money can also drive it into its success, or can drive it into, so it is like funneling through the energy of money, the initiative to where it can get to go. That one in particular is really hard for people to understand, because they normally say, wow, that's the Jetsons. I hope I'm going to be alive when it happens. And when I tell them, well, it's already here, they have a hard time comprehending that. And that's and really, in short, it's just a new mode of transportation. And it is right now. There's several craft that are going through the FAA, getting certified around the world, doing pilots, happening here in Los Angeles, happening around the world. And a lot of those are battery electric, And I'm not going to say anything bad about anybody's choice of technology. But what I will say is that the hydrogen is interesting because it's zero carbon. And if you make hydrogen in a renewable way, it's zero carbon chain from the beginning to the end. So it's what was great about that project is we were really able to, again, touch on behavior and, are people going to accept this? Where are the concerns going to be? Of course, safety is expected. But there's new modes of getting around, and what are the implications of that? What does that mean? But what was great about certainly the project that I'm leading now here in Los Angeles is that you have to look at it through an equitable lens. So you have to understand how it's going to impact people, and any of those negative impacts, how are we going to compensate for that? So this isn't, and this was what I heard from this project from day one. This isn't just going to be about, the super wealthy flying over the jam-packed in traffic rest of us. It was more about a service and more about using this wave of technology to actually make it better for all. So the environmental kind of non-polluting aspect of it is awesome. It's great. I love it. It's going to continue to go as hydrogen proliferates, as we see this take on some of the established fuels, but tying it to a form of transportation that was almost equally dynamic and immediate to us has been quite fun as well. And to your point, like the dichotomy, just to finish, boy, you talk at that world and those stakeholders and that kind of conversations, and it's completely different than what's going on in certainly on a reservation or in conversations that Indigenous people are having right now. Not that they're exclusive, but boy, you can really see that those completely different priorities right now and what's in front of them.
Can I just bring up a picture of these? Because this is what you're talking about. This is the these hydrogen air taxis.
It is.
Is this it?
That's it. Yeah.
Is it going to be as cheap as taking an Uber?
Well, that's the air taxi is the service side of it. And yeah, I mean, again, there's several companies that are out in front of this because they are using more standard technology. They've done a really, you can go to their website and get a really good idea of what the vehicle and what the ecosystem looks like, and certainly interviews with some of the stakeholders there. But yeah, to most people that looks like science fiction, but it's actually not.
Very real.
And Uber certainly has their hand in it, and they are essentially wanting to be that one of those operators and one of those providers of those services.
Wow. We were talking about the nature of products, Pete, the other day, and that are now on the market. And you were talking about them being persuasive versus regenerative, but so that they're beneficial to people, but regenerative to the planet at the same time. Can you talk about that a bit, about taking the benchmark much higher now?
Yeah, I think that to me, those are two very important aspects of design or solutions right now. The regenerative piece, just to start there, that almost comes from, again, how out of balance we've been with the profit motive being so high at the expense of everything else. So particularly environmentally, we need solutions that are not just now neutral and, oh, look, they don't have so much of a negative impact or a lower negative impact. We actually need to create solutions that are regenerative and actually make up for the damage that has been done. So that puts more work on the product or the solutions that designers and developers are coming up with now. But it's almost a necessity. It's almost like the bar has been raised. So a product can't be just good enough. Now it has to actually do heavier lifting. And then the persuasive part of the technology, regardless of the artificial intelligence and the ways that can happen, because we are being persuaded, of course, by AR in multiple ways. But it's essentially, persuasive technology is essentially technologies that help me achieve what I'm trying to do anyway. And the easiest example of that is an alarm clock. I want to get up. I want to get up in the morning, so I set my alarm clock. The alarm clock wakes me up. That is a persuasive technology. It's just basically helping me do what I want to achieve.
Okay.
So some of these, life coaches or ways to improve myself or improve, those are persuasive techniques. And the more of that can be put into technology and put to work to help us achieve those goals is, again, where the real opportunity, in my opinion, lies between the two of those, the regenerative and the persuasive. So the projects that I'm working on right now are trying to do exactly that and doing as much of it as possible.
He's not going to tell us what it is he?
I will. It's a lot of it's being worked on, and some of it's public. But it's the underlying philosophy. And so what's interesting is that you can look at products now out there and look at it through certain lenses, and you'll start to get a scoring, if you will, against how you would judge it. And look, what I'm talking about right now, the regenerative and the persuasive, those are not on most people's checklist. It's still like how low cost can we make it? Where do we have to do it to get low cost? How long is it going to live in the marketplace? They're not even asking what the end of life scenario of this product is and how much landfill is it going to do. We're not even still there yet. So these can be advanced discussions for a lot of groups, but they shouldn't be, is my point. This is the type of filter and the type of criteria that we should be looking at these solutions for.
You were also saying the other day that when we talked about retractions that are about Belgium, something that's just been announced. Was it about?
Yeah, that was encouraging.
To climate promises?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think the biggest concern is that in times of trouble, the retraction squeezes it back down to the importance of money. And let's be honest, that's still here, and it's not going away, and any recession or depression show that. And a lot of the sustainable initiatives or these green initiatives or these green promises or commitments have been made in where there's certain economic state, and so if we project out into the future, we're going to commit to X percent of reduction of greenhouse gas or whatever it is, the emissions that are done. And then you see that a crisis or something happens and, that was what we aspired for, but the reality is we can't because it costs too much money or we're going to lose too many jobs. It's all these easy responses that can stop the commitment of that future of what we want to achieve. And so I was encouraged by what I saw recently in Belgium, where they basically said, no, we are actually doubling down. We are reaffirmed to our commitment of our clean future. And I think that has a resonance to it. I think that there takes that commitment, but it's the commitment of the future, because we know that there's several different economics once you get over onto that side of renewables or clean, or certainly different than what we're doing now. This tug of war in the middle about the economy and jobs and security and all this type of stuff is just this thrash that we're in right now. And so I was really, really encouraged by that. I certainly hope that other countries around the world continue to do that. I know that, not all of them are. And but that was inspirational to me, and I hope to others as well.
What about the micro effect for the consuming masses? I mean, does it translate down to us? Because the choices that we make are tied to the dollar or the pound or the euro or the Aussie dollar, wherever you are in the world. It seems to be that it's so tied down to this consumption model.
It is. It is, and that was kind of the point too. When times are tough, dollars can be, stretched. Does someone go for a solution that maybe is a little bit costs more, but has all of these benefits and this deep thinking and into it, or do they go for the low cost but they can afford? And you kind of know the answer to that, right? It's this vicious cycle. So therefore, it starts to back to designers saying, it's not bad to say how low cost can we make this. It's not a cheap chintzy thing that's going to be thrown away. On the contrary, how low cost, how affordable can you make it? Because that is one of the barriers. But in the end, the micro view of all this is us voting with our dollar. And maybe there's the need to have more education. Maybe the brands need to do more about that and showing the differentiation between another choice. I think it's just tied to also the personal choices and the conscious outlook that the individuals have. And you can't put a blanket statement across it. How arrogant for me to say that someone should buy a more socially beneficial product, or a product that has a socially beneficial aspect to it when these people are really struggling for survival. Right? So you can't make these unilateral discussions. That's where it's back to understanding the user and the context. And a lot of companies and designers have talked about products for emerging markets so that they could be lower cost and whatnot. It's not that they're subpar. It's just put into context and developed for what is necessary there. And a lot of that is just how much money people have.
Mm.
And talking about you as a designer, what makes every designer unique, would you say? Obviously, empathy is one thing you mentioned.
Well, it's funny because if you're actually trying to get a visa into a country, I mean, this was certainly historically, I don't know currently what's going on, but it was actually somewhat easy for designers to do that because every designer is unique, because I have my makeup of what makes me a person. I have a certain level of education and experience, which makes me see the world uniquely. So that's what they look for. They want to bring that unique talent or what they, can't necessarily use there. And designers are that. But this is where I stop and say, everyone's a designer. That's what I believe. We all are designers. We're designing everything every day. We designed the way we made our bed. We designed what we had for breakfast and the way we set the table, and we designed our day. So it's all, purposeful placement of object or time or energy, which is really the broadest definition of design. So, every one of us are unique in that regard. It's just, how do we apply it, whether it's a profession or, help designing a program for our kids now in these times and stuff like that. Yeah. I just look at it through that lens. But then there's the professional aspect of design. There's the academia side of design. There's, different terms and different models that come out. One of the little quotes that you picked up on there was, our most preferred future. Yeah. That actually comes from a discipline called speculative design that I believe was coined by Dunn and Raby, who've put out a book on it. But it's saying the same thing. It's like we have the choice to pick our future. And the only way that we really get to pick our future and be proactive about that is if we understand what all of the options are, so that we can look at them and say, well, gosh, that's actually what we want. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So design is not just in the creation of the last artifact or the solution or the system that was created. It's actually the means to have interpersonal conversations, even bridge conversations like we see between political or religious factions, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
As long as it's painted in the right way, and the reason why it's easy is because we're all humans. So if you can get it down to that human level, then it works.
And so what about the younger generation of designers who are coming up now? I mean, kids just think so out of the box and so differently anyway. They're not linear in the way that maybe our generation is, totally lateral thinkers. Yeah. And so how do they problem solve in a different way to, say, our generation does? Driven, say, by the empathy of their, of the empathy towards the planet.
Yeah. I see a lot of, from my perspective, it's, and again, it's young, but designers, at least in schools, they're writing the same thing. How do they turn this education and this debt into a career and into revenue? Like all of us who come out of school with whatever we're doing, that's what we're trying to do. And there are traditional schools and classes in order to do that. And then there's so many jobs out there. I think out of necessity, people are finding hybrids to based on what they find interesting. And so they will follow this kind of personal pursuit. They'll work within the constructs of a school or a class or a model and then they will use also the tools that are available today that weren't available when I was in school. Just the visualization through render, animation, the digital side of it, the 3D printing, all of the, just the smartphone and the apps and everything that we've talked about there, just the ability to make something and make it have impact right away. I'm seeing that trending in just about every one of the classes that I've seen and people that I talk to who are making classes. So there is this swell that's coming up that everything that's been done before is kind of, not right. Like we could do it like this. We could do it much quicker. We could come up with solutions. We could vet those solutions, and we could actually implement those solutions much quicker and in different ways than we had to traditionally. That, to me, again, is right where the excitement happens, and it's almost at the point of necessity. And as long as it's not just like, hey, if we bang this together quickly, look at how much we can sell, but it's more like, if we do this, look at the positive impact that we can have across the board. You have an inherent motivation that you can't really teach through any of the disciplines. Mm-hmm. That's where it gets really hopeful. But like anything, even back to that meeting where it's that generation saying, hey, if they're not going to pick it up, if they're not going to do it, then it's just it's not going to happen. Yeah. So there's actually some similarities or some parallels there.
And Teo, even your boy, he's the designs young kids are coming up with and the ideas they have.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
And your little Teo.
Well, I just, because he's homeschooled, Peter, so he hasn't been in school now for 3 years, and so I'm always trying to find new and innovative ways to entertain him. And I found this amazing online coding course, and I've got a post about it on my personal Facebook page because I just shared it because I was like, this is amazing, but I've never seen him as engaged. He does it works out at like $15 an hour for one-on-one coaching with this beautiful teacher that sits in India, so they're 5.5 hours ahead of the UK, and she just coaches him. They're taking him through this whole syllabus. The syllabus itself is 300 modules long. It would take about 2.5 years, but he's on less than 8 now. He's already developed 2 apps, very simple apps, but uploaded them to my mobile phone, and I'm playing an app that my son built, in 8 hours of learning. By the time he's done 24 hours, he'll have to upload his own app to the App Store. And then by the time he's done all 300 hours, he'll know how Google autonomous cars drive, how blockchain works, and how cryptocurrency works. I was like, you imagine knowing that by the age of 14 and a half. I'm basically, he may not be in school, but I'm future-proofing him for the future. He's teaching me stuff. We went for a walk this morning. And he was telling me about this stuff. I have no idea. It's just like, amazing to see how these beautiful little minds work. You know, they may not fit in a classroom environment being told what to do all day, but once you find that, you just have to keep trying and trying all these beautiful different things, you know, and they throw stuff away just like we do when we're adults. You know, you try it, read a book, boring, read a book, boring, read a book. Oh, I'm really into this one. And then you read more like that. And kids, I feel, are the same.
It's so true.
Yeah, really. And just to see him engage, you know, he wants to get up in the morning and he wants to do his homework, and they're very clever because they've gamified it. So, you know, every time you get a class, you get another hat, you know, a virtual hat, and then they're sending text messages to me going, God, he's just done this, and please tell him well done. It's really well done.
Persuasive.
Yeah, it is persuasive, but it's also clever because they're keeping the parents engaged because they want them to keep paying the $15 an hour. But $15 an hour for one-on-one coaching in this is just like incredible.
Yeah, that sounds like a successful model and one that's obviously working and engaging.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, like one of the testimonials they used, a little 9-year-old had built an app that could check the retina of somebody, you know, using it on their phone that could pre-see in children whether they were going to have an eye problem when they were older because of what he'd seen his sibling go through. The 9-year-old came up with a concept of this, and obviously then the technology company were like, well, let's help him create this. And these guys even offer a prize, you know, I think to like $15,000 to the most, you know, for the best ideas for apps. And then you've got the whole of, you know, the big internet corporates behind it that are sponsoring these things. Because obviously they're looking for the new people in the future. But what I would love to see is these new people in the future coming through. They're going to use this technology for good rather than for bad. I mean, we met this amazing young guy called Batuhan who does these virtual reality apps, and you put on these goggles, but he will actually take you on like a shamanic journey through these goggles. Because he was like, I want to make sure that I'm being the absolute opposite to what Facebook want to do with it, which is to drive you into a consume. Yeah. He says, I want to use this incredible technology to take people that would never have an opportunity to have a shamanic journey to experience what it's like without having to use plant medicine. I was like, this is smart. These kids coming through are like,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So creating from the divine without money being the thing that limits them.
That's right.
Going for the experience rather than the profit aspect.
So there's right now we're at the height of certainly any time in history where the distance between inception and manifestation has just really collapsed. So you can go from an idea to a thing, whether it be an app or a 3D print or a business model in record time. Yeah. So totally agree. All those tools are tremendous. I mean, we're at the heightest, the greatest time for all that, literally the golden age for that type of stuff.
We're just beginning. So exciting.
Well, back to what we said, though, it's like, what is the motivator?
Yeah.
So where is that intrinsic part, and how well have we taught our children, hopefully we have, that what they desire and what they want to, what is incepted and what is manifested is not just for profit. Sure, it's a piece of it, but starting asking a little bit more of the why questions behind that. Well, why would you do that? Or what if this? And just like the discussions I had with my kids about, thank God you're passionate about this. You know, somehow it's in them. That's what we need to really keep the hope in, because those are where, you know, it is that divine coming through the human consciousness, coming out with things that nobody could ever imagine before. And if we can look at it without just the profit motive on it and everything measured about that, which is what I see. I don't see people being like, oh, let's look at this business model and how many will we sell? It's like, look at how amazing this is. Then we could really benefit from all that creativity and channel it. And also in school, there's hybrids being done. In university, I know it's all kind of up in the air right now, but know of a few people who have, essentially it's kind of going back to the Renaissance, where just like you said, they read this, they're not interested in that, but they're making their way, they're making their own diplomas and their own degrees by bolting on their interests, and then it becomes this new thing, which maybe doesn't have a place in a traditional one school of thought at the university or another, but they're more interested in a crosscut. What the bottom denominator of that is that person's desire, and what are their hopes for what they want to create.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly encouraged. It's like anything where you've got to be encouraged and positive about the future. Then that we are the ones that create the future. And then it's like, well, where are we now? And it's a very delicate place of, are those kids going to get, luckily support and steering from a parent like yourself? And then, can that make up for, can the success and the collective movement of that make up for the ones that don't have that benefit or are most struggling of our society, and not create this divide of not just opinions and camps of thought, but geez, collectively we have got to go through this. And anyway, that's why I'm encouraged at least to see a lot of the programs have this social equity right front and center, and it's one of the criteria that has to be dealt with, and I love that. I commend that. A lot of that is actually at a city level. It's what city it is and who the administration is, and I can say nothing but good things about Mayor Garcetti's office here in Los Angeles.
So Peter, what's your vision for innovative future designs? What's exciting you at this moment in time in that arena?
Well, I think it's...
Ashley says, what is your dream machine? So she's asking that same question.
So what is my dream machine?
Yeah, bring it up here.
That's fun. Well, it's kind of a joke because a lot of people that come to us, I say, oh, well, you first we have to invent the time machine so that we can go and do the things that you want to do in this amount of time. But I mean, to me, it's as basic as possible. So, when you boil it down to the human necessities, that will give you a clue. It's basically clean water. We have a real problem on this planet with water.
Yeah.
Maybe people on this who are watching this, but you start to look outside of this and people don't even know that we have a problem with water. They don't even know about the plastic in the ocean and where this is going to go. And the reason it's so daunting to me is because of that. There's not even the awareness. There's not even the conversation that's going on about that, which tells you that there's not a start of a solution to it. So to me, it's the things that are going to be most brilliant that can draw attention to and deliver real benefit to me as a human, and while so doing, clean up and help prevent further problems that we're creating. And the environmental one is the easiest one to push. So, my dream machine, of course, is the way to help all the young designers and all the passionate designers create a conduit for that type of stuff to come through. And as I mentioned, I think a lot of the crowdfunding sites are doing that. But they're still based on, okay, how many units are you going to sell and what's your revenue? This whole Shark Tank kind of venture capital mentality, which is really profit. They're like, oh, I like that. Well, it's not going to make enough money, so I pass. How can that be more judged on the impact and knowing that, we're going to accept this much profit because the impact is so much high, just creating more and more pathways to there. So
I love the analogy you gave us when we interviewed before, where you said that the new economy is give what you can and take what you need. That I like.
Yes.
And it's about being in service, isn't it? Bringing service and helping others into it, really.
Yeah, it's a old way to look at things too, I think, and maybe, and just like we know, a lot of that wisdom was there in the indigenous people, just in the way that they interacted with the tribes and the family and the people and Mother Nature. So all that was kind of there. They had wars and they had strifes and they had all their problems. weren't necessarily completely paradisiac. They were just in more balance. So how can we, again, get some of that instilled in humans, instilled in the youth, instilled in the ones that are right now in desperation? Like what breaks my heart is thinking of all of that talent and this individual who's going to come up with something that nobody else can, but they don't have any opportunity to even think outside of this kind of perhaps toxic environment that they're in right now. I mean, that's just horrible.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's the human dilemma, but yeah, I think that as design broadens its definition, and we start to understand that it is really about purposefulness and purposeful decisions, creation, whether it be a digital or a physical or what have you, or a movement. Let's not forget that the ephemeral is a great example of design. And and actually you see more passion and more intensity the more ephemeral it is. So a parade, for example, tons go into creating that float, and tons of people get together and collaborate, and tons of those are doing that, and they all kind of have this collective purpose. But boy, that parade goes down and it's over. So the whole purpose is just for this one moment, and that's actually what ceremony is. Ceremony is a ton of preparation, focused preparation, action, diligence. You know, doing. Ceremony itself actually happens rather quickly, and I think that a lot of the demonstrations that are happening right now that are born out of people's frustrations are good, because they show that people are awake and, hey, this is not good, but you know, how are we going to shape that positively, like has been done in the past even, and get away from you know, some of the non-positive sides of people just of passion. I mean, it is, it's out of necessity. It's real. It's correct. All of it, because all of it is right. All of because we are here. So everything that we're doing is part of the equation and right. But man, how could design start to help channel a lot of that passion? And so that's a daunting question. I don't have the answer to it.
So Ashley brings that up again. She says, how can children learn to bring their bold ideas to life when teachers ask them to pay attention and stop daydreaming?
You've seen that study that creativity actually peaks, at least I think in the US or in the Western mindset, at about 5. And the reason it does is because that's when they go into the school system and the creativity starts to be closed down in exchange for learning.
Yeah,
some pretty famous studies there, but yeah, I think maybe this whole thing is going to help with that too. You know?
Yeah. So something that is, we're coming slowly towards the end now, but the last 10 minutes, but something that is really starting to squeeze people now, and probably will more in the future, Pete, is, well, maybe we should just talk about that elephant in the room. Something happened, I think it was in March, sort of 3rd week of March, that nobody, not the media, no one is talking about, and it's flipping huge. And that is that the Federal Reserve was placed under the Treasury in the States. And, you know, we all know someone we love who got their head blown off for doing that or attempting that. So let's say it as it is. And why is it gone unquestioned by the masses? Is it a reflection of the immense apathy out there, or, you know, financial or media fatigue? What is it? Why aren't people talking about that? It's massive.
Well, I think it's obviously a multidimensional question. The biggest, the easiest part of that is that no one just knows, and they don't know because there's no attention brought to it. There's no attention brought to it because, you know, it's not. It's perhaps not something that wants to be let known at this point, or the implication of it. But even before that, like, you can still today, you know, at least here in the U.S., ask somebody what branch of government the Federal Reserve is under, and they would tell you, you know, it's under one of the 3s. They would have been wrong, of course, until now. So now that it was put under the Treasury, it's very interesting. And I mean, just the history of the Federal Reserve in the United States is not understood by majority of people. We're not going to cover it here on this one, but it's you know, just go to the fact that there's a private inauditable bank that is printing every one of our dollars and putting us in debt for every one of those that they lend us. You'd probably be like, I'm not sure if that's a good design. But so that's not just here. That's of course the design, and I think the other reason is that it's just hiding in plain sight, meaning that it's just the way it is. Nobody even gives it a second thought that there could be an alternative or there needs to be an alternative. It's just like, okay, there's money, and I get as much money, and money equals luxury, and I climb up and do whatever, you know, or whatever the aspirations are. But yeah, I think that, so people in the know, not just about that, but about some of the promise of a change that instills an economic change. It instills change that certainly was being discussed there right on the cliff of the sovereignty, whether it be an individual sovereignty or sovereignty of governments, is certainly something that I'm looking forward to. The difficulty is tying it to time, because once you kind of know about things, then you expect it to happen. But you know, historically, change, certainly that kind of change takes a lot of time. My prediction is that it's not going to take a lot of time this time around, that there are going to be some of these light switches that get flipped, some of these rather difficult to comprehend even concepts, just like the one I mentioned. I mean, just that alone, it's really hard for people to get their head around the Federal Reserve, and when you really start to look at what happens there. That's no conspiracy. That's nothing about, you know, anything. That's just fact, and it's been going on. I think the 1912 was the last was the second establishment of that, and that was rather tumultuous at the time. So I think we're going to see that happen. And what's interesting is this, like you said, this thing has actually happened that was fairly tectonic and is not even understood or discussed by anyone, even the people who did it. So,
I mean, there's going to be this inevitable price that we pay for this. Every government is doing it, and this sort of expression, we're all in it together. Are we all going to crash and burn together, or is there an upside to it, Pete?
Yeah, well, as I said, the promise is, and the belief, the tell has been that's what we're up for. That's what's coming for us. And a lot of what I've heard and learned is that, yeah, the future is bright, and it's bright because everything that I've just kind of talked about in my own little discourse here about through the lens of design is actually the way that the whole thing is being set up. So if it's not in balance, it's just not going to exist. For whatever reasons, it can't afford to exist, for example. So you price it out and do it like that. So I'm extremely encouraged about all of that, because at the end of it is the human benefit, just like what we're talking about here. It's all of us that benefit collectively, but then individually. So yeah, I don't think much more needs to be discussed, because it's happening at its own pace. Exactly. And I think it's easy to understand that aspiration, and it's easy to see how that aspiration is contagious, because it's all of us. We all want the same thing.
Interestingly, in fact, Pamela says here, watch Thrive 1 and 2 to gain more understanding of this, folks. And then Portia goes, Thrive 2, the movie is out. And we sent an email out about it the weekend. And if you want to go see it, I'll put the link into the comments. It is $9.99 to watch. So I think
it's really worth it, though. It's an amazing film.
I think that that first film they never charged for. It's been viewed by over 90 million people. They just gave it away for free. And they, and these things cost a lot of money to make. Time of the Sixth Son cost us over £700,000 to pay $880,000 to make. And we're still nowhere near recouping anywhere near any money to pay back.
I'd love to know their budget.
So, oh, it's $9.99 to watch a movie. Well, you wouldn't think twice about, spending that on 3 coffees or going to, the cinema, if you were allowed to go to the cinema without having to wear a mask. It's like, it's $9.99 if you want to watch Thrive 2, but very, very worth it.
Yeah.
Those guys.
So the conversation is afoot, and look at, you just said it right there, Teo. Look, you guys did something that was necessary. The profit motive wasn't the impetus, and it didn't stop you. And so, you're still trying to shore that up, but you're so high up on just even this of any conversation that is being spurred and attention that's being brought. So you are way over here, and now what we need to see is you get to at least you're flush, and I think that again is wouldn't that be great, right? Wouldn't that be great when and this is what was talked in your film. I mean, take away that need for that money, the only way to get there. And wow, we have endless solutions that can help us get to create that future that we want.
Yeah, and it's that receiving and the abundance. And with that, I'm going to put up the donate page because, at the end of each one of these live talks, we say that, we have costs, $1,500 a month it costs us in technology, just to keep everything going, the website, the email software, not so much Facebook, but even the StreamYards, to have this ability to broadcast across these things, it all adds up. And each week we ask everybody that just, $5 or $2 or $3, it doesn't matter. I think last week we got 4 donations because I think everybody sits at home and thinks everybody else must be donated. I don't need to, but it all really does help us to keep doing these things for free each week.
Yeah, and you need to, wouldn't it be great to keep proliferating all of, not just yours, and making sure that yours is sustainable, but all of them. And again, that's possible.
I love a comment here by Bob where Asher said, if we're all designers, what is your dream machine? And Bob says, a machine that produces willpower. I'd like one of those.
That's on us. That's on the parents. That's on the generations above to instill the values, to instill the somehow, because it's already in the human. It's just all covered up by all the crap. And we, I think, can do our kids service by trying to separate them from the crap as much as possible. But in the end, they're going to do it. But yeah, I agree with Bob there. And but we've got it. It's there. We're born with it. It's innate. The divinity is inside of us. And all of us, I love that old saying about there's nothing more powerful in the universe than a human acting out of their own consciousness. And we've seen it historically. We're going to see it continue in the future, and we're here now. So,
we are the greatest creators. I love, there's a quote from John Riley in the film. I'm not sure if it made it to the final edit, but he holds up his hand and he said, we created it once before. We can recreate parts of our body. We are creators.
Yeah.
With that, it has been an absolute pleasure, Pete.
Real pleasure.
Sorry about all the echo and everything.
Oh, I hope it wasn't me.
No, it wasn't you. I don't know what's going on. With the last 2 weeks, we've had a bit of I think I need to go around to Luna's house and we'll check out the tech and find out what's going on because something's not quite right.
Because Teo has all the microphones and the high tech. And I just have to use my laptop.
I just
because I'm going to launch that tomorrow. I'm super excited.
What? Thrive? Oh, Jorge. So do you want to finish by telling us about that?
Yeah, I can. So Luna and I, we've been asked so many times whether we could go in depth into some of the subjects, and Jorge Luis Delgado is a phenomenal teacher on the Andean ancestral teachings. And so he's offered to run a live workshop over 2 days. It'll be 3 hours a day on the 8th and the 9th of October, all about the Andean ways and the Peruvian mysticism. And it's the similar course that I did a year ago. And I can tell you it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to send an email out about that tomorrow. And I'll also post about it on the Facebook page and the Facebook group. We will be charging for it. I'll let you know that up front. It's $180 for 6 hours of coaching. The group's going to be kept very small, and we also offer a 3-part payment, so you can pay $60 a month. But we give so much away for free, and Jorge needs some money, and we could do with a little bit of extra income. So we're going to run these this beautiful 6-hour live, and you'll be able to have a chance to ask questions. So I'll email out about that tomorrow. But yeah, super exciting. But Peter, thank you so much for joining us and for giving up your mid-morning or your early afternoon to
this guy is so busy. I've tried to get him several times onto the show. So really great.
It was not for lack of desire, and thanks for having me. I just wanted to really say a special thanks to you two for everything that you're doing. I mean, you're epitomizing everything that I kind of said, and so blessings and all the best for you, and just also get a chance, few and far between, to send love and light to everybody on the other end of this interview too. I mean, that's really, really fun as well. So yeah, appreciate it.
Well, maybe we'll have you back later next year to do some mentoring with design and stuff. That would be amazing.
Well, certainly love to come back on and show some more of the fruits of what's being discussed and all that. And yeah.
You've got a date. Perfect.
Yeah, great.
Thank you so much, Pete. And anyone who wants to get a hold of Pete or wants some questions answered, then you can always come to us and we'll pass it on.
We've got loads of people saying thank you. Bob says you're the global family. Rachel says thank you. The Facebook user, I can't see your name, lovely, because unless you've clicked the StreamYard link, we don't see you. We just see you as Facebook user. Sounds great. I love his book. Very interesting. Asher says thank you from the Netherlands. Here they're all coming in now. Thank you, Ariel. Thank you. Anne says thank you. So Pete, you can see all around the planet. People have been watching in, and yeah, love to all of you for joining us this evening. We will be back next Monday evening at 8 o'clock. And we don't know who our guest is yet, but we will let you know as soon as we do. And bless you, Luna. Luna has been working on those questions for Pete since 11 o'clock this morning. So it just comes across as seamless and effortless, but it isn't. She sits and she works and she writes every one of those questions, and then she sends them across to me and she says, these are the ones I ask and things. So thank you, Luna, for all of the hours of preparation you put into these each week, because I don't want to think that you're just doing it off the cuff, because you're not. Never leave anything to chance. Hence why you created a movie and an 8-part docuseries, and the people are able to watch it. So you deserve thanks. And Peter, thank you to you too. And thank you to all of you for watching us. And with that, we bid you good night. Bye-bye.
See you guys. Thanks so much.